Hello everyone, I'm Inverse, and welcome to the final map-specific walkthrough for the Build Order Breakdown Episode 1, focus on Volks Volks Sniper MG. I have not posted a video in a few weeks now because of bandwidth limitations. I have been jonesing to finish this series. It's been a long time in the making, partly because of my busy schedule, partly because of my terrible laziness, but it is finally nearing its valiant, glorious conclusion, this here being the last game of mine that I will showcase. I will be presenting a few games from some fellow players within the community, some prolific players who have made their names on this Volks Volks Sniper MG strategy. So look for those in the coming weeks, and I will also be doing a kind of general wrap-up video at the end to put the finishing touches on this guide, perhaps get it up on the Game Replays portal, we shall see. And after that, probably going to go on to a different series. Might just cast a few replays in between then, get a bit of variety on this channel, because I know it has been fairly Wehrmacht focused and fairly Volks Volks Sniper MG focused. And I know there are a lot of new builds that are coming out, a lot of really good players trying a lot of different things. Even myself personally do not use the Volks Volks Sniper MG all the time anymore. However, I do feel like I should give it the justice it deserves and finish off the guide, since I feel any player could use this map on any map if they practice it long enough and have a reasonable degree of success. So without further ado, let us, where's the pause button? There you are. Let's get this one started. This is the North Samoa video. This will be a game between myself up here in the top and Ben Bella, who was a newer account that got top 50 fairly quickly. I'm not actually sure who it is. I looked up some replays, or I tried to look up replays of this player and couldn't find any. So we will be in awe of this player's skill unless someone wants to tell me who he is, because I have no idea who he is. He's actually fairly good. And his stats reflected that he was fairly good. This is a slightly shorter replay, only about 20 or so minutes, so I will be pausing a little bit in between and just kind of going over the general principles of this map, because I feel that's the main kind of key that you need to take away from Sturzdorf, because Sturzdorf, pardon me, can be, in my opinion, a rather difficult map for Wehrmacht. There are, of course, some very aggressive pin strategies you can do involving these buildings and MGs over here and MGs up here and stuff like that. Of course, from the bottom there are also pin strategies with this building, and buildings over here, stuff like that. If you want to play like that, I strongly encourage you seek out those builds. If you want to try something like this, hopefully I'll be able to help you out. It is a little tricky, in my opinion. Sturzdorf is a fairly difficult map. I actually still do Volks Volks Sniper MG fairly consistently on Sturzdorf, but it is a fairly tricky map, and I'm just going to pause it right now before this little first engagement, because this is actually pretty important for this map. I just want to point out some things about the general layout, especially from this position, that I find very important. First of all, if we look at the munitions distribution, there's a plus 10 here, a plus 5 here, a plus 10 here, but there's a plus 16 right up here. This is a key point. I mentioned that in my South Sturzdorf. That's going to be really annoying to talk like this entire video, but we'll get through it. We'll see. I was talking about in my South Sturzdorf video how this plus 16 munitions point was super important. This plus 16 munitions point equally important. You want to be keeping this for as long as possible. You'll notice a bit of the way into the game, I'm going to divert my sniper over here to deal with a harassing rifle squad. Stuff like that's what you really want to do. Capping order is pretty standard. I built my Wehrmacht quarters with the first Pioneer, and then I sent it to cap this point, then this point, this point, this point, and from there I sent it down here to cap around here. Generally don't want to send it over here because my American opponent's probably going to already have this, and it's going to be very difficult for me to harass it. It's not really worth it. It's better for me to gain a little bit more munitions and maybe get a VP and just have a better idea of where my opponent is. Because if I come up here and my opponent comes down here, he could probably harass this munitions point and I wouldn't have even noticed. If I come down this way, this is the more likely path for my opponent coming from his base. Of course, if he has a squad up here, I might miss it. But if he has a squad down here, over here, which is far more likely, I will probably be able to see it coming up here with this Pioneer, and I'll be able to react a lot easier. My built Pioneer, on the other hand, it's going to go right here to this +5, then this strap point, then this munitions point, then around here to this munitions point, and then here. And the general reason for that is I'm going to be using my Volks to cap this munitions point. I'm also going to be using it to lay some wire, as we're going to see in a second. So let's just get things going right now, and we will see. Right now, here's the wire coming up. I do this before I do anything on the left-hand side. I always send my first Volks right up here. Don't cap anything, nothing like that. Going to lay wire right here and right behind here. It's complete opposite of when you start South Sturzdorf, when you of course want the wire on the opposite sides. I do this just because it's fairly annoying for an American player to have to deal with. You can of course cut the wire, but that does take a decent amount of time. And something like this can kind of tip the scales in your favor, which is always nice early game. Now what I'm going to do right here is make sure all my Volks are behind this point, and then try, as you saw right there, to build some sandbags. He of course is rushing me with a rifle squad, so this is a very, very key engagement. This pioneer is very important. If your opponent comes in with an engineer and a rifle squad, you're going to need this extra pioneer in support. As we see right here, I'm going to focus fire on the rifle squad. Rifle squad's the one dealing the most damage. You can of course focus the engineer if you'd rather, and you would probably have a better chance of killing the engineer just because it has less health and less men. But focusing the rifle squad is generally the better idea, just because you deal a lot more manpower damage and it takes a little bit longer for him to reinforce. So going to cap this point right here, I really like to put a sandbag right there and then instantly shift click a cap, because as you can see right here, your Volks will actually stack on the sandbag and all 5 men will gain the green cover bonus, at least directionally on this side of course. And what happens is if your opponent comes in from here and starts charging you, even if he tries to charge you right up here, all you have to do is box this squad, select this squad, hit halt, which I believe is H on standard hotkeys. You could of course just press the button down here, or hit Q on grid keys, which is what I do, and they'll all start firing and they won't move, so they'll all still be stacked and they'll all still get the green cover bonus. Now as you saw, I moved my Volks to the right hand side right there. You're going to notice right there, you see I'm not capping anymore. I hit halt, and I notice fairly quickly, as you see right there with that fast retreat, that 2 rifle squads, my second Volks a little bit out of position. I wasn't going to win this battle. I was going to lose a lot more than I was going to gain from that, so I retreated that Volks squad. Now I did put this Volks squad in this building, which is generally a good idea. However, he did have a flamer that he popped after I'd gotten in the building, which I didn't realize until a little bit too late, so that was a little sloppy on my part. I did lose a decent amount of health on that Volks squad, even though I only lost 2 men. Okay, so that's a little less painful. It's always more painful to lose health and not men on Volks squads early game. Like this guy, half health and 5 men. I'd much rather if I had lost 2 men and be able to reinforce up to full health. Volks are very, very cheap to reinforce early game. It's not generally a problem. The bigger problem is the time spent reinforcing. And when you have squads with low health, they're going to have to retreat earlier. That means you're going to have to spend a lot more time reinforcing than you'd like. Now, you'll notice I saw this rifle squad moving over to this right-hand side. So what I'm going to do is I feel fairly comfortable defending my left-hand side, or at least forcing my opponent off with my 2 Volks and my MG. What I'm going to be doing on the right-hand side is using my sniper to defend my points up here. I'm not really too worried about this fuel point. But what I am worried about is my opponent capping this fuel point and still being able to move over here and harass this point right here. An interesting thing to note, actually, is as we see a little engagement going on down here, that I'm going to be perfectly fine in. An interesting thing to note about capping and decapping is every single unit in the game decaps points at the exact same rate. It doesn't matter about their cap decap rate. Every single squad will decap a point at the exact same speed. When they cap a point, their cap rate comes into play. So say the 1.5 times cap rate of the rifle squad, of course, going to be far better than the 1 cap rate of Volks squads before tier 2. And same thing goes for pioneers against rifles, engineers versus rifles, all that kind of stuff. So in general, it doesn't matter who does the decapping. Capping, it does kind of matter, but not too much. So as we can see, I'm getting my tier 2 up. I'm still harassing on this right hand side with this sniper. I just want to make sure I can keep this munitions point. This is my main kind of crux of my right hand side, because I can push out up here if I so need to. Excuse me. Almost burped. That would have been very rude, burping in your ear like that. But I do have a lot of munitions right now banked, which is very, very nice. Munitions, of course, as I've mentioned time and time again, very, 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 very important for Wehrmacht. I'm actually curious what I spent that munitions on. Okay, it was a health pack. I do not have many mines. This is a problem with this game, and it's actually going to bite me in the butt in a few seconds when my opponent pops bars and decides to go for a little flank attack. As I've mentioned in almost all my videos, I believe, so far, mines are essential to holding off flanks with this strategy. You will not hold off a flank unless you get extremely lucky or your opponent is extremely bad with this strategy, unless you have really, 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 really good mine coverage. The good thing is it's perfectly fine to retreat. As we see, here's the flank coming. He's actually waiting for bars. It's perfectly fine to retreat with this strategy. Perfectly fine. Of course, you don't want to. And if you don't have to, it's far better than being forced to, of course. But as you can see, I'm not really on the field right now. I don't have any mines. If I had a mine right here, this little group of units would be completely destroyed. I actually probably would have killed that engineer squad if I had a mine right here. This complete group of units would be slowed down. I could have had mines here, and mines here, and I have more than enough munitions for that. So that was a little bit of a misstep on my part. However, my main goal right now, because I am so close to my base, I get my reinforcements extremely quickly. You'll notice I'm getting a Gren instead of a pack right away. That is because he popped bars, so I know I'm not going to need any sort of AT. I'm moving out on this left-hand side just to see what I can see with regard to my opponent. Sometimes it's a good idea while you're getting flanked like this to send a Pioneer squad out on a side to try to cap some points. Pioneers aren't really useful in defending flanks at all, and if you can get a little bit of use out of them and force your opponent to react to you, because generally an American player is going to want to invest every single unit it has in a flank, just because that guarantees the maximum damage for that flank. So that's kind of a good situation and a good opportunity to run around and cap around the map. I'm actually going to lose a Volks squad right there. That was very sloppy. No, Volks squad lost. But at this point, my opponent has lost such a ridiculous amount of manpower. You'll notice he actually lost that engineer right there. He lost a lot of rifle squads. If we take off the fog of war for a second and look in his base, he's got a 2-man rifle squad, a 1-man engineer squad. How many squads does he have? He actually lost a rifle squad there as well. A 3-man squad, all low health, and yeah, he did lose a rifle squad. So slightly sloppy play on my opponent's part. And because I only lost that Volks, I do have my 1 MG out. I am not building a second MG. I am building a second Gren before a pack, and that's just because he lost a lot of manpower there. So if he does indeed come out with a M8 soon, which is highly, highly unlikely, but he could say completely cut all infantry production, not reinforce any squads, and just try to get an M8 out as fast as possible. He's not going to have any infantry support behind that, so I can give myself, I have a lot more flexibility in dealing with that. Now if he reinforces and gets a triage, which it most likely looks like he did. Does he have a triage? No, he doesn't, but he did reinforce, and he's moving out. This Gren was, or not that Gren, that's not a Gren, that's a Pioneer. This Gren was a perfectly fine choice. I also have a ton of munitions, so I can very easily build mines, which I'm finally planting. A mine right there, a mine somewhere else. No, only 1 mine. Yay, 1 mine, better than no mines, I guess, you know, look on the bright side. So I can plant mines. I can get a Panzerschreck if I so desire. I'm also getting my pack now just because I want to go for the standard 3 tier 2 units into tier 3. And what I'm doing right here, this is a nifty little trick. I'm going to pause right now and just say this is a nifty little thing you can do on this map. You can kind of do it when you start south just because you can technically walk actually right into your opponent's base. It's just a little bit more difficult because generally your opponent's going to want to be over here, and it's going to be pretty hard to walk all the way up here and in here to get some scouting done. But when you notice your opponent's far away on this right hand side, and even if you just force your opponent to retreat, you can sneak in down this left side, especially if you're going for the left side, which you should be if you're going for Volks Volks Sniper MG. You can just kind of sneak down here and get a fairly good idea of what your opponent is doing in his base. As we see right here, I see the supplier just now going up, so I know I actually could have probably, did I? Yeah, okay, I canceled my pack right there. And the reason I did that is I noticed, hey, Look at this. He has a supply yard going up just now, and I'm delaying it. You see, he's not even building it right now because he's afraid of my Volks doing too much damage to his engineers and killing his engineers while they are building because of the kind of damage bonus that units get against units that are repairing. So I canceled my pack and I decided, hey, I'm gonna get a third Gren, and then I'll get my pack, just because I know he is getting the supply yards, so the possibility of vehicles is definitely there. It's just not there yet. And I can very, very safely get that extra Gren because I absolutely do not have to worry about any sort of vehicles for at least 2 minutes, I would say. Just taking into account the motor pool build time, the M8/T17 build time, all that fun stuff. So we're going to notice once I get up to 290 here, I am going to get my pack. My opponent still has decent map coverage on the right hand side. He still has the fuels, and this is why I find this map to be very, very good for Americans. It's just the simple fact that you can go fast Shermans almost every single time, at least against this strategy. Just because this is more of a passive hold munitions strategy and survive what your opponent throws at you, which I personally find to be the best way to learn the game and the best way for the most part to play the game. You can't of course play the game like that every single time. You get predictable, you will be hard countered in certain situations because your opponent will be able to predict your safe play and take risks to exploit that. So it's definitely good when you play the same people multiple times to mix things up, but still I am strongly of the mindset that the best way to practice and the best way to improve is to get a friend, get someone around your skill, and tell them what you're doing. Say, hey, I'm going Volks Volks Sniper MG, and then I'm going to get a med bunker, and then I'm going to go tier 2. I want you to hard counter me as ridiculously hard as you possibly can. And I want to know what hard counters is, because the most stable and the best strategies that you're going to be able to use are the strategies that you can use and your opponent knows what you're doing, knows exactly what you're doing, knows when you're going to do it, knows all the units you have on the field, and still can't beat it, still can't do anything about it. That is, in my opinion, when you found a strategy that you can absolutely use for an extended period of time and have a lot of success with it. Strategies where you can say, hey, like, that's why something like a weapon support center start, I personally don't find very good. Because if I know you're going for a weapon support center start, I can hard counter that so ridiculously easily, unless you're Marines and you do 4NG or 4ES and you're very, very good with it. That's a little bit of a different situation. But in general, if you say, hey, I'm going to do a normal weapon support center start, or I'm going to do for Wehrmacht, Crazy Tiger really, really likes 3 Pio into Sniper first out of his Wehrmacht quarters. If I know you're going to do that, I'm going to go rifle Jeep, or I'm going to go Jeep rifle, and your sniper's not going to do anything. I'm either going to kill it, or I'm going to severely delay it, and you're not going to get any map control or manpower damage done. And it's stuff like that. It's strategies like that that I really, really personally absolutely do not care for. Just because it relies so much on what your opponent is doing and less on what you're doing and how you're playing. And I feel the best way to learn and the best way to play standard and the best way to kind of improve is to not cut any corners whatsoever. Of course, you do need to cut some corners in tournament play when you play the same people over and over again, yada, yada, yada. I heard it all a million times. That's not exactly what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is learning the game and figuring out a style that works best for you and a style that you can consistently win with. And when you lose, you know why you lost. And you can fairly specifically pinpoint, hey, I did this wrong. I did this wrong. I should have done this, but I didn't. I should have done this, but instead I did that. And because I did that instead of this happened, and you can kind of piece together the result of your game and figure out the best way to fix it, the best way to fix your problems, the best way to solve whatever issue it is that you had in that game and that you have in general with your play. So at this point, I've gotten my tier 3 up. I'm getting my Comcraft Center up. I still don't really know what he's doing. I peeked in and I didn't see anything. I saw the supply yard, I saw a triage, but I don't know if he's going motor pool or tank depot or even weapon support center. It's most likely motor pool just because he hasn't had much fuel for a large portion of this game. But at this point, it's not really too important at this stage just because I have such a ridiculously massive lead as we look at my units. 3 Grens, Pack, Puma, Sniper with 19 kills, all that fun stuff. So I am just going to run in with this Puma and see what's up. In a second I will see the motor pool. I also see his entire rifle contingent moving out on the right hand side. I see the motor pool right there. I'm also getting Vet 1 on my Pumas. Vet 1, very, very, very important upgrade for Pumas because it gives you something like 20% extra health, which is extremely, extremely important against AT guns because instead of being 2-shot by AT guns, Pumas with Vet 1 are 3-shot by AT guns, which is a big difference, and it makes it a lot easier to save your Pumas after you lose them. Another small micro note, when you're microing any sort of vehicle, you really have to take into account not only the location and the direction you're facing and stuff like that, but also acceleration and deceleration. I'm going to pause it right now and just say, because this is kind of technical and kind of difficult to explain, but I'll do my best to explain it. If you watch my stream over at twitch.tv/InverseTV, shameless plug, you'll see me doing this kind of micro trick a lot. And I feel it's really the best way to kind of go about microing vehicles is when you're moving forward and you want to reverse, don't just start right-clicking behind your vehicle, because when you do that, your vehicle has to go through its entire deceleration and then acceleration in reverse. What you want to do instead is while your vehicle is moving forward, click right on the vehicle and move it in the direction it's facing. So if my Puma... Let's see. Move forward, you dumb Puma. Move forward. Okay, if it moves forward, I want to right click and drag like that. And what it'll do is the Puma will stop instantly. It won't go through its deceleration, anything like that. It'll just stop. And then you can start shift right clicking backwards. And instead of having to go through the deceleration and then the acceleration, it only has to go through the acceleration through reverse, which makes things a lot quicker, and it's a lot easier to reverse out of, say, surprise rifle ambushes when they're trying to stick you or something like that. Just makes things a lot easier in general, so that's something to keep in mind. Of course, your main focus should be getting the units you need and microing them while still doing everything else. So while reinforcing back home, which I'm not doing, reinforce, and while building stuff and while upgrading, getting vet and stuff like that, because that's going to help you a lot more than some minor micro tricks like this and some other stuff like that. Co is a game of micro more than it is a game of macro. It's not an economy-based game like StarCraft, anything like that. It is, by and away, a strategic game. It's a cerebral game more than it is a mechanical game, but the mechanics definitely do help. They just shouldn't really be emphasized, in my opinion, until you feel proficient with the strategy to dedicate some of your mental focus to the mechanical aspects of it instead. So we got an M8 out. I got nothing else. I'm sorry, guys. The M8's gonna drive around, and there's a mine right here, and I think you guys know what is probably going to happen. Come on. Stuff's dying over here, I know. I'm just gonna ignore that. I want you. Drive. Poor gunner. Bang. So, that's unfortunate for the M8. I got a free grin too. Yay, free grin. I'm also getting infantry vet because he doesn't have a weapon support center. So I might as well get infantry vet. That grenade did absolutely nothing. Oh, that was suck. That was embarrassing. So, stuff shooting at other stuff. This thing's finally gonna die. Yay. Except all my stuff almost dies to this, like, one rifle squad in a building. I also got stickied by a rifle squad, which is very, very sloppy of me. And he also threw a second sticky, but I'm just gonna be able to repair that because he has nothing to kill it with, so that was kind of a waste. But at this point, the game is kind of over. This wasn't, in my opinion at least, the best game in terms of showing a long drawn-out game. I feel the South Sturzdorf game was better for a long drawn-out game. So if you are looking for how to play and transition from this strategy into a late game, especially against Shermans, which are very, 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 very popular on this map, I definitely recommend you check out my South Sturzdorf video. I think it's video number 6, part number 6, against Barton PL. Kind of goes over that stuff in a little bit more depth. You're going to notice on the right hand side some wonky looking text, and that's just because my opponent was getting a little upset and we were discussing some things in the game, and I did not want to distract from the glory that is Company of Heroes with nonsensical chat between two foes. So I went into the replay with a hex editor and just changed all the text to dots. Yay! So exciting. So yeah, I have 3 Pumas with that too. Let's take off the fog and see what we got. He's just kind of chilling, talking. Let's fast forward. Stuff's moving quickly. I'm chillaxing. VPs are ticking. I'm shoosting. He doesn't have an AT gun, but it's conveniently pointed at the barracks. That's really not going to do much of anything. More dots. Lots of dots. Maybe we were talking in Morse code or something. That would have been cool. I should have made it Morse code. That would have been fancy. And then really, really nerdy people like me would have been able to decode it and like, yay! But anyways, there's a GG WP. We'll play to you, sir, as well. And yeah, that's actually it. I don't know what to say from here, guys. Yay! The what's this section called? I guess the personal videos, the map specific videos, are now officially completed. These are all the maps that I plan on covering for this strategy. There is, of course, Wreck Train, which I did not cover, but is such a strongly Wehrmacht favored map that so long as you take the general principles I covered in each of these 6 or 7 parts and apply them to that map, I'm sure you won't have any problems whatsoever. The other map, or the other starting position rather, that I did not cover is North Samoa, which happens to be the Samoa location that is used in tournaments. And what I am indirectly telling you is I do not recommend you use this build in tournaments. I will hopefully get my hands on an Aimstrong replay from North Samoa from a recent tournament and show it to you, because North Samoa was Aimstrong's best map when he used Volks Volks Sniper MG to ridiculously good effect. It might have even been in a Sunday night fight, something like that. But he was very, very good at North Samoa, so I will go over a North Samoa replay and do it from Aimstrong's perspective to try to give a little bit of insight on how to play that map with this strategy if you so desire, because it's definitely possible. I just find it very, 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 very difficult, and I personally do not like it. Aside from that, I have stuff, I should say, but I don't remember what it is. Oh yeah, Code 2's out. Or released, or not released, but the info's out. I think I mentioned that last cast, but yay, there's going to be a Code 2 portal on Game Replays, so I definitely recommend you guys check it out. There's already a Code 2 general forum if you guys want to head on over there and start posting with some GR members about the game. There's not really much to post about, but you know, stuff like that. I also want to give a huge shout out to Burning. If you guys, which I'm sure you have noticed, the awesome new background that I currently am sporting on my YouTube channel, that is all thanks to him. Excellent designer, excellent job. Worked with me for a few weeks to actually get that to a point where He wasn't happy with it, but I was perfectly content, and I really appreciate the hard work that he put into that, and it's a great final product, and I definitely recommend you check out his YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/burningbroadcast. I believe broadcast, something like that. There's actually a link in my featured channels. He's right at the top there. Easy to find. He does a lot of Battlefield gameplay. I definitely recommend you check him out. And aside from that, there is a Game Replays tournament coming up June 16th through the 18th. And I definitely recommend anyone with the means to play, sign up and play. Even if you're not a top player, it's definitely something I would recommend doing. It's an excellent experience, and you might even play, some really good player first round, which is always a fun experience. But aside from that, I am pretty much done. I will be back in a few weeks or so with some replays of some top-level players using this very strategy in some tournaments and some high-level games. Then I will give a little bit of an overview, kind of summarize all the points that I went over, all of the general theories, and then I will move on to some American games, probably, because I am sick of the Germans. Thank you for watching. See ya.